Board of Selectmen business meeting to order on this 26th day of November 2019. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we begin, I'd like to state for the record the entire proceeding this evening, except any executive sessions, are being recorded for both TCTV Cable Station 8 and the TCTV YouTube channel. If there's anyone else recording, just please let us know. But they do a great job over at TCTV, so I don't think you need any extras. Thank you. As always, our agenda for this evening has been set no later than 48 hours by law and is publicly available at the official source for town information, templetonma.gov. I would also remind all citizens of our 4 villages to sign up or register for emergency updates using the Code Red system. It's on the left-hand side of the screen near the bottom. Although I have the discretion as chairperson to add and remove from the agenda, it has been set to allow for time, personnel resources, and public awareness. I reserve the right to move the agenda items around to best fit our business and guests. Thank you. And with that, before we move into any public comment, I wanted to ask the board if we don't mind moving up the change of manager for American Legion and Otter River, since we have them here with us.
Get it done.
Does anyone object to moving them up?
I don't object.
I don't know.
Okay, I'd like to open the floor first for public comment. Does anyone have any public comments? Questions, gripes, complaints,
Praises.
jokes? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna move into the formal 4 and 5 portions of the meeting. This evening we did have some meeting minutes from, I believe it was our last business meeting that we had some amendments on that we are working on, but we don't have any meeting minutes or executive session minutes to approve for this evening. Under item 5, new business, introduction of new employees.
We have none this evening,
None this
Mr.
evening,
Chairman.
okay. All right, if no one has any objection, I'm gonna move items J as in Juliet and K as in Kilo up first. Item is application for change of manager for the American Legion. Jim, I see you're here tonight? Oh.
Yeah, both Jims.
Oh, both Jims. You just want to come up and sit at the table with the microphone, one or both? Okay, let's
There's
see.
a bug in here.
In your papers?
And now it's on me.
It's on her.
Sorry.
Should we go into recess?
Could we maybe not have it on camera?
I don't know, Sean, you're gonna have to work some miracles over there.
Oh, yuck.
Okay, good evening. Mike Curry, Jim
Jim Cutting. Jim Cutting.
Cutting.
Cutting?
Just want to confirm, yep. Great. And you're the new commander over at the Legion?
Yes, I am.
Okay. We have your application for a change of manager under the ABCC Commission. Let's see. I think this is a fairly standard, I've seen this before. The proposed manager name that's Jim in the back.
Yeah, Jim Braille.
Okay, great. ABCC license number 1268 quad 03. We have signed applicant statements. Looks like everything's in order, Mr. Karanzini.
As far as I understand,
Okay.
Chairman.
Any questions for Mr. Cutting? Is everyone satisfied with the application?
So just to clarify, Jim Brio's taking over for Mr. Cutting? Or is it?
No,
No.
Jim is taking over as the manager for their.
Mr. Cutting is, or? Jim?
No,
No.
Jim Brio.
Oh, okay. I get it.
So Jim Cutting is a sponsor and the
I'm-
commander.
yeah, I'm
He's
the
commander of
commander.
the post.
Of the Post.
Thank you.
Oh,
I don't have any questions.
So I move to approve the application for change of manager for the American Legion.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion? Any questions? Okay. I have a motion and a second with no further discussion on the motion to approve Mr. Brio and from Mr. Cutting for the change of manager. How do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes,
And I vote yes as well. Great.
okay.
thank you both for coming.
Okay, you're welcome. All set?
Yes.
All right.
If you need copies or anything, just, if you just get with Holly.
Okay.
In the TA's office.
All right.
And provide you any of the paperwork that you might need for that.
All right.
Great.
Is there anyone from the Otter River
Yes.
Sportsman's Club
Yes,
here?
Mr. Dossett is here.
Okay.
Yep, please. Yep, so the same, this is the ABCC change of manager application for the Otter River Sportsman's Club in Baldwinville. License number is 108-23391-004. Mr. Dossett, you are the treasurer,
Yes, I am.
okay? And you'll also be the manager,
That's correct.
okay? All right, I have the signed application.
Is everything else in order?
As far as I know, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And you're replacing Mr. Levant.
That's correct.
I move to approve the application for change of manager for the Otter River Sportsman Club.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or additional comment? Discussion? Hearing none on the motion to approve Mr. Dossett for the change of manager for the Otter River Sportsman's Club. How do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes,
And I vote yes as well.
Thank you.
All set.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving back into our agenda for this evening. We have annual committee appointments and vacancies. This evening, we have Council on Aging and the Agricultural Commission.
Did we skip over A?
Nope, we didn't have any new employees.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Let me just, okay, sorry.
Is anyone here for that?
So for this evening, we have a new appointment and a reappointment. Donna Sands, not in the audience. We have our community interest form that you had in your packets.
Yep.
Been in the town, I think I think it said she was a dispatcher for 30, more than 30 years. And would like to serve on the Council on Aging Board.
I make a motion to approve Donna Sands for the Council on Aging Board for a 3-year term to end on June 30th, 2022.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion concerning Mrs. Sands? Hearing none on the motion that's been seconded for Donna Sands for the Council on Aging Board for a 3-year term. How do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
Excuse me.
Great. I'll move on to the reappointment. This is for the Agricultural Commission. We don't have a form because it's a reappointment for Mr. Matt Leclerc to a 3-year term expiring June 30th, 2022.
I make a motion to reappoint Matt Leclerc to the Agricultural Commission for a term of 3 years to end on June 30th, 2022.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. I don't see Matt in the audience tonight, but
No.
I know Matt participates, I think, in every single farmer's market we have, so hey, there's your bug.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
It's over here now.
Oh. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none on the motion and second to appoint Matt back to the Agricultural Commission. How do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay. Luann, you're up. This evening, we have the public hearing for the tax classification, Board of Assessors. We have members of the board. Give me a second, and I'll go ahead and I'll open, I will open the hearing. Just want to make sure that Okay, I'd like to open the hearing for tax classification, November 26th, under Chapter 40, Section 56 of Mass General Law. Time now is 6:43. Ms. Roy?
Okay, so this year in your packets, I sent you all the breakdown of our tax classification here. And last year when we were here, it was asked if we could show you a comparison of a split tax rate or a single tax rate.
Yep.
So on all the paperwork I sent you, and I sent you one over the weekend that showed a split tax rate. Talking with my board members, John's here tonight, they're recommending a single tax rate. A split tax rate, they don't feel it's beneficial to the town. This year, our values are going up substantially, so our residential people are taking a lot of the burden already. And to offer either a split tax rate down for commercial, industrial, and personal property, or up for commercial, industrial properties, there's really not enough business in town right now to be able to split a tax rate and be able to shift the burden that much. If you look at all the charts we gave you, it does show that, and like I say, they're not suggesting. This year, my average single-family homes went from 209,000 up to 226,000, which is a $16,000 increase. That's across the board, which is a 7.3% increase. Prime land, acreage on land this year also moved. My land values haven't changed in years. What normally an acre of land was $33,500 this year has jumped to $37,000 an acre, which is an increase of 10% or $3,500 more dollars a year. Excess backland has always pretty much fell at $2,000, and this year even that's gone up. That's gone up to $2,200. A $200 increase again, which is a 10% increase in backland. That's backland, so say you have 5 acres of land, your first acre is gonna be a prime building lot, and you're assessed at the $37,000. Those 4 additional acres are gonna be assessed now at $2,200.
And that's called backland?
That's called backland.
Yeah.
My house values across the town increased anywhere from 1% to 20%. That's, ranches, colonials, split ranches, 2 families, 3 families. So that's quite a price range for anybody looking at residential. We did have open disclosure in the beginning of October. Values were set out there on the website in my office. People were welcome to come in. It was published in the paper. Unfortunately, we didn't draw pretty much anybody into my office. So it kind of would give the people the heads up of where their values are going.
I did see the list, and
Yeah.
it was posted, and it was easy to get to, so I was able to review it myself.
Yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
hoping a lot of people did online.
Yeah.
You know, so just so they get an idea of what's happening. My real estate, taxable real estate and personal property, which is part of my tax rate recap that we're working on. Last year was at $658 million value. This year, my value in town went up to over $710 million, which is $52 million increased on assessed property values.
It's the biggest jump that we've had.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it's
And
gone.
ages and years.
I was like -10, +10, +3, +40, +20, +40, and then, like you said, yeah. Just
So
the
it is a big
difference.
jump, and this isn't just something where the board and I say, oh, let's, jump the values this year. Everything was submitted to the state because we are also in a revaluation this year. And, okay, I just lost my train of thought here. And I can't remember what I was gonna say.
Revaluation year?
Well, that doesn't happen to me, but anyways. Yeah, really.
A lot of us here are sure glad that just happened.
Yeah, really, it's been a long week. But anyways, so my board is recommending to do a single tax rate again this year. It's your option. We're just suggesting and asking that you do a single tax rate. I don't know if you have any questions from everything we sent you in the packet.
I thought the packet was done really well.
Yeah,
And
I-
it was a lot of great information that was very helpful to me
Thank you.
to know where I would fall in the tax rate. And it was just very helpful. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. And I do remember what I was just going to tell you. My sales analysis were based off of 17 and 18 sales in town. Next year, the sales will be based off of 19, and right now, we're anticipating increasing in real estate again next year. So I just kind of want to let you know, we use sales for 17 and 18, and actually from September of last year to June of this year, just a fun fact out there, is I didn't have one property sell for less than asking price on the market.
It's going around.
It is, it's,
It was on the
it's
news
good.
the other day that it's this time of year for everybody, and they're actually saying how that's impacting.
And John actually had called me the other day, wasn't it Rutland or Sterling?
Rutland and Sterling.
Right.
And also the city of Worcester. Prices values have just skyrocketed in every single,
That was the news report, it was about Worcester.
every community.
So,
Because people are willing to pay more as they move further west. They're selling houses that they bought for $250,000 5 years ago for $5, and coming out here and buying one that was $100 5 years ago for $3.
yeah.
The
And
the
they're way
Route 2
ahead.
traffic shows it, I mean.
Oh,
Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, it's crazy, yeah.
It wasn't like that a few years ago, now it's, you hit Jackson Road and it's, you know how many people are trying to get back out this way. I had a question, page 2 of your packet, it's the steps. We
Yes.
are completing, step 6, 7, 8,
Correct.
and I believe also 9.
9, yes, you're
Yep.
gonna be signing a hard copy, and also we're electronically signing for DLS for the, classification for a split, single rate.
Okay.
And then, once that's all signed, and we're submitting that tomorrow morning, as soon as I get all your signatures in there, and my board signatures, and the town clerks. And then, once that's sent off, I worked with Kelly today, and everything on the tax rate recap's all set to go too. So that will be sent off and signed by my board tomorrow morning too. So hopefully, DOR, I checked the website today before our meeting. I know Jeff had talked about how many people had been approved tax rate. And before I came into the meeting tonight, out of 351 cities and towns right now, only 134 tax rates are set. So only 38% of the state has a set tax rate. So right now, the state is really busy, they're overloaded, so as soon as we can get this in, and we're real confident in our figures and everything's falling into good, so we're hoping we get a fast turnaround for the tax rate to be set.
Again, yeah, I reiterate what Diane said, the packet I think was very helpful, your additional information, just to see, what if we didn't choose ones, what if we did a .9? I thought that was very good information, especially if we haven't been through this process before. I think that helps out a lot.
Yeah, that was the goal, to kinda
I know it helped me.
walk you through it.
So shifting, just, you had said it's not advantageous, and because of property values, moving it around it would be an additional burden, but just, you had given us an example of move from 1 to moving it to .9, towards the.
Which would be a
the CIP.
Right, so that would
The
be moving
commercial.
your commercial, industrial, and personal property down,
That's correct?
right.
And that would, only be $1.68 less on the tax rate, within your example. And it would increase the residential by 1% or 20 cents.
Yes.
So it's really not.
It's
much of
not
a
much of a difference,
gain,
no.
right?
Yeah.
And then
Don't have
going the
enough-
other direction.
You don't have enough industry in town now to make it worth doing.
Yeah, I don't know how much of an
Either way.
incentive that would be.
Either way, either up or down.
Right, Boston's tax rate, and horrible example, but it's 6, but their commercial is 25. you know,
And actually, in this area, the only one that has a split tax rate is Fitchburg,
is it,
and Fitchburg's looking to drop it and go back to a single tax rate.
And so is Worcester.
Right.
Yeah, and
Worcester's
Worcester.
doing the
yeah.
same
And
thing.
Athol doesn't
Yeah.
either, huh?
No, everybody, all our abutting towns, everybody's a single rate,
Single
because you
rate.
just don't have the draw and the values on your commercial.
And if you went to the split rate, it's small businesses, so mom and pop, you give them a break on their commercial, but then you screw them on their home.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
because most of your mom and
So
pop
what
live
are you
here.
accomplishing?
You're
Yeah.
absolutely right.
You know, I mean, it's
Right.
not
I
like
like
you
that
got,
point.
big box stores, Lowe's, Walmart, all these big national chains.
Right,
It's mom and pop, it's local residents, small business, and
right.
if you split it, you hurt them, one way or the other, and it's,
Yeah, because on,
Once you guys
I was so
attract a
worried.
lot of those big box operations, then we can do that.
yeah.
well, and on your chart, I showed you the top 10 taxpayers, which you
Yep.
see are mostly all our commercial people. And 3 of those top 10 taxpayers also have many multiple residential homes in town too. So, I mean, you're not,
Right, either way,
you're hurting
you're hurting
either
them.
way what you do, so.
Right.
All that sweating I did, I was so nervous about this.
Lucy.
It's my first time and I'm like, oh my God.
I don't want to place any more burden on our residential taxpayers than we
Right.
already are, where our property values have increased so much, and that they're gonna take a hit. It's just not fair to them.
Thanks, Diane. Yeah,
It's just not fair.
thank you.
So I did make a motion, if you want to go with a single tax rate, if you want to change it, I can read right back.
You, yeah, I have to close the hearing first.
Yep.
So, we've been talking about where Templeton sits. I know I'm ahead of the process in terms of tax rate and otherwise, but when we say that we're for 2019, we were ranked 283 out of, do we get ranked against 351 or just the other towns?
351, cities and
351.
town, the whole state,
Okay,
yes.
so the higher the number, the better in terms of tax rate.
Well, lower, yeah, if
Lower,
your number's like
280.
250, you're a lower tax rate than 250 other people are higher than yours.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just talking about this one right here.
All right, team, any other questions, comments? Or really questions?
No, I'd just like to say that I think that the Assessor's Office and the Board of Assessors work really hard at their job,
Yep.
and I'm grateful to
I'm
them
grateful.
for all that they do.
I'm
Well,
very
thank you.
grateful.
Thank you.
In my head, all I'm hearing is,
Now it's you.
Well, the whole financial team put together, when we changed things and we changed to a financial team, and, I mean, Luann's and her team have always worked really hard, but when you put them together and them working together, it really makes for some good synchronization.
Yeah, actually, the recap went really good this year, you know? We're really learning it.
That's good.
Yeah, yeah, you
That's
know,
good.
so hopefully we won't hear much from Deb, so.
That would be awesome.
Keep your fingers crossed.
So normally in hearings, you've got, as the handbook says, this is a adversarial hearing, but I wanted to say, that was what was proposed. Do I have any other comments to any contra points or any misinformation or not enough? So the entire tax classification packet was published, and it was available for inspection and otherwise. So I think really that's what I'm looking for, is did anyone see any faults within the evidence that was shown? Great, I'm gonna go ahead and close the hearing. Okay, I need a motion to do that.
I make a motion to close
thank
the
you.
hearing at 7:51 PM, the tax classification hearing.
say,
I have a
I'm
motion.
sorry, 6:51.
I have a motion and a
Excuse me.
second.
I don't
Any
know how to tell
discussion?
time.
On the motion that has been seconded to close the tax classification hearing, how do you vote? Jeff?
yes,
Terry?
yes,
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Hearing is now closed.
Okay. I make a motion in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 56, as amended, the percentage of local tax levy which will be borne by each class of real and personal property relative to setting the fiscal year 2020 tax rates, and set the residential factor at 1.0000 with a corresponding SIP shift of 1.000, pending certification of the town's annual tax recap by the Massachusetts Department of Revenue.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion that's been seconded. Any additional discussion or deliberation on the hearing? Hearing none on the motion that has been made and seconded, how do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
Okay,
Thank
just
you.
one other thing, the state requires a hard copy of your signatures that you voted.
Yep.
So I did put that down.
Does it matter what coloring? Does it matter?
It doesn't matter what color ink?
No, it doesn't matter.
Vice Chairman? You know, in the past, before my time on the board, I know Diane had talked about reading the handbook and doing your research and everything, and now I fully know what she was talking about when she made that statement probably a year ago.
I need to reread because
Yeah.
sometimes you just get into the habit of doing certain things and
Yeah.
sometimes they're
It's a
not
lot to
good, they're
understand.
not good
It
habits.
is, to understand. I read this, Adam.
That just-
The budget is the most important policy. I'm like, oh my God, I am dying here.
That at home, right, 'cause you
I can't tell
You did a good job, Terry.
I can do it here if you want.
No, it's you guys
Whenever you
that-
want.
You need us before we
Well,
leave the
it's-
building, though.
It's,
No, I think we're
it's a
all
lot
set.
when you
Oh,
take it
oh, that's right.
seriously
You-
like you
okay.
do, isn't
Got
it? It's
it.
a big burden.
Thank you.
So we're all set?
Okay, great.
Okay,
People's
thank you
lives
very much.
depend
Thanks.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you, John. for doing
All right, I'm moving on in new business. Actually, it's kind of old business, but for the agenda tonight, we've got the next action item, which is our gap closing plan, to which we have Mr. Terenzini's explanation memorandum that we have from November 6th. And we also have the gap closing plan that was presented at a joint board last Thursday with the advisory committee, and I don't think we had too many other people in the room, except we had the entire staff, or at least department heads. Looks like you're presenting this evening.
That is correct.
All right. Good evening, how are you?
Doing pretty good, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As you can see, it's right in front of you after the memo. You have the gap closing plan. Mr. Terenzini and I worked on this. I presented the last informational meeting between, as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, the Board of Selectmen and the Advisory Board. And the cuts are pretty much self-explanatory. Insurance and benefits, $42,500. Snow and ice, $5,000. Select Board, $5,000. Senior services, $17,500. And development services for $1,322, which brings us to a balanced budget.
Are those numbers, do the numbers in our packet line up with the email that we received earlier today?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Which email was this?
The only difference is in the email that you received earlier today, there was a change in the heading and a identification of the specific line items they
Got
were
it.
coming from.
Oh, that email, okay.
Yeah, it was just a little, that was a cut, and we, I think.
Yeah, just a
Otter
different format.
formatted it. I just want to make sure that the number, that's all I was concerned about, was the numbers. that
These
were-
are the same as were presented Thursday night.
Great. Did we receive any communication, anyone come in, ask questions, point a finger?
I think most people are pretty happy that we were able to do
Yeah.
these cuts with the most minimal effects
Right.
on the team, the department heads as a whole, and the community, and to keep the services moving forward.
Yep.
And making Templeton a better place each and every day. despite the fiscal constraints we have.
And
on
have it
us.
as a transparent process.
Exactly, and it's something that we were able to all partake in.
You have to
Oh,
go
we're-
sign, you have to go sign.
Oh, on the electronic. Yeah, it's just gonna wait a second. It'll take him 2 seconds to click on that. There's an electronic signature that Luann needed.
For the tax.
Oh, okay.
I didn't have any other further questions anyway. Nothing had changed.
Yeah, I think everybody seemed pretty pleased.
I didn't even recognize that you had left the room, sorry.
No, I went and did electronic thing, so
I shifted back
should've
and I
told
saw
you.
your chair. So Adam just basically reiterated what the process was. The numbers in the email that we received earlier today are the same. No additional comment from anyone coming in. So we've got that in front of us. I didn't have any other questions. Jeff, did you have anything on the gap closing plan?
no, I'm good on that.
Mr. Chairman, if there are no other questions, we would request that the board approve budget amendment 2020-2, rescinding $71,322 from the amount authorized by Article 26 of the 2019 annual town meeting, as subsequently amended by the Select Board under the authority on the same on September 23, 2019. And that second amendment, Amendment 1, you'll remember that you had transferred some monies internally from the Selectmen over to the various departments for the collective bargaining agreement.
So moved?
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, on the motion that Mr. Terran, that was made by, or moved by Diane, of $71,322 is hereby rescinded from the spending authority following departments in the following amounts as authorized by Article 26 of the 2019 annual town meeting as amended. How do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thanks for all your work with that. It was a lot. It was a lot to do and a long road.
I would like to let the board that at tomorrow morning's staff meeting, the fire chief will be authorized to bring his firefighter paramedics back to the 48 hours per week and his administrative assistant back to the budgeted hours. The police chief will be authorized to fill the shift, and the public works director will be authorized to fill that position. The positions that are vacant will, however, not be filled on a permanent basis. We'll be holding over some of our seasonals, using some of our part-timers, because quite frankly, we expect to be having this discussion again in about 3 months' time.
I agree.
And I can't, in good conscience, put the department heads through a hiring process, put candidates through an interviewing process, and then come February 27, 28, or say, I'm sorry, this is. So the plan at this point is we will work with those that we have. We have a couple of great young lads down at Highway that came to us through our internship program, the School to Work program that we've been engaged in with the regional school district. Once we're pretty comfortable, we have a budget. April, we'll advertise the positions, then do the interviews and be ready to go as soon as we hopefully have a meeting of the minds come town. So I do want people to know we are gonna be taking steps, but we're also trying to continue to show some conscious deference to make sure we don't get people in a bad situation.
I agree. Okay, moving on to the revenue estimates. In your packets, you've got, two-page spreadsheet.
Mr. Chairman, we went over this a
Yep.
couple times. Kelly prepared the estimate, and then I went through and it was approved by Carter. I believe Kelly brought the information that where there was some outstanding questions at I believe it was our last time we met regards to the revenues. Hope that's to your satisfaction and we could approve this tonight.
Just as a reminder, Mr. Chairman, we did circulate this to the advisory committee, let them know when any comments would be needed. We did not receive any
Okay.
by that date, so, you know, as far from the staff position, I think we've done all we can do unless there are
Yep.
further questions.
What will that number be?
For,
What will the number be on the personal property taxes? It just says split unknown till tax setting, so if we approve this tonight, there's no number in there.
And there wouldn't be until this time next year.
Okay,
Yep.
So when you set the tax rate here tonight,
okay,
when
don't
Luann,
remember
when
that.
that gets approved, Luann puts that into
Okay.
the billing system, and when that gives us the final report, that's when we can tell you what the split actually was.
okay, I just don't remember that from last year, but
Yep.
forgive me.
They usually stay in the 160 to 170-ish range.
Okay, okay, thank
yeah, I
you.
would see it, I would probably see it, increasing a little bit.
Oh, yep.
And the revenue estimates have the TBDs for the transfers from our enterprise.
Those are a function of the expenses that we carry
Yep.
for them. So truthfully, they're meaningless.
Right.
It's so much out, so much in.
Then the
And, obviously, we have stuff that is tied to the state budget as well, as indicated in House One.
That is correct.
I did note, let's see, you had a couple of changes from the budget, and then what was administrator approved column.
Mhm.
Some were up, some were down. I'm assuming those were based on estimates, you know, trends and estimates.
Tummy tickle based upon
Yeah,
40
like,
years of doing it.
miscellaneous permits, you know, from 5 down to 3. But it follows the same trend as a lot of the other fee structures that
Yep.
we've got.
And they're on the conservative end. so
They're on the conservative
They are.
end, which I did notice
Yep.
as well.
I did.
In accordance with our policy.
Right,
Mart reimbursement down.
I would say that if there's any question on the recap, we have been put on notice by DOR to try to bring that number down. It's challenged because we did have it in a revolving fund, but they didn't want us to have the revolving fund anymore, so now we have to carry it on book. And they just have been paying careful attention to what the estimate is in comparison to actuals. But given in the past fiscal year, we were around 46 in 19. Then we carried 60. I think we're going to be okay. But that is a gap that we have to just keep an eye on and keep closing as they ask questions about it.
I make a motion to adopt the FY '21 revenue estimates dated 11/21/2019 as presented.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the revenue estimates for FY '21?
Just a quick thing.
Yep.
When Kelly brought this to a meeting, I used this to check these, go through these revenue estimates. And, well, I had bounced around a little bit because but the numbers were matched up, unlike before she had done this, I don't know, correction or rearranged it the way, you know, it was. But, and I like that. So when I look at the real estate revenue, and I look on here, they match. One is a little bit, a couple
3 cents.
bucks or something, but it's much better from my perspective, when I look at this one and these sheets, the numbers match, I don't have to go, oh, I gotta subtract and subtract, it's done, and it's on this sheet that way presented, and I like that. I think from my perspective, it's a cleaner format, and that's why I appreciated this.
I will include that next year, that there'll be a second tab that will have that same breakdown, so you'll be able to see that.
Like I said, I'm just a funny little guy, I like it, but it's cleaner to me, and it's easy, to me, it's easier to read. I really appreciated the work.
Especially with the color coding Kelly did to make sure that all those fiscal years, so that it's not confusing when you're looking through it. It stands out in coordination, so instead of going through the revenue estimates, it's kind of all, I get where you're coming from, absolutely.
Any further discussion? Okay, on the motion has been seconded to accept the revenue estimates for FY '21. How do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you all. Next, action item is for the countdown calendar, budget countdown calendar for FY '21.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, what I did is I went through this.
I'm sorry.
You did?
Yep.
The draft motion? This select
We're
board
not in
work
order.
and
Can I back up?
Sure.
All right.
select board work.
Next action item is the FY '20 through '23 Board of Selectmen goals. And that is the large folded familiar document. Can you get it down to one?
You got it down to one?
Yep, nice.
So what I did is I listened to exactly what the board wanted. I went through and made sure that there wasn't anything left blank. I made it clearer with
Hi, Amanda.
the sections, so you could clearly see where we're starting at, what our plan is. If you see a question mark, that's because we can't accurately put a number in there yet. So but everything's filled in just as was requested at their last meeting, so I revamped the whole thing and I updated everything, hopefully to your satisfaction tonight.
Everything was exactly the way I thought it would be.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Adam, Carter?
I make a motion to adopt the FY '20 to '23 Board of Selectmen goals dated 11/21/2019 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the BOS goals? Hearing no further discussion on the motion to adopt the BOS goals for 20 to 23. How do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Next item now is the countdown calendar for FY '21.
I did some minor adjustments. I believe Selectwoman Griffiths wanted me to add as well, and I believe the chairman wanted me to push back convention of the committees, because initially, remember, we had it in November, but we moved it back December 5th for convention of the committees, the all boards meeting at the Community Senior Center.
Yep. So that's a change that's already been made.
Correct.
Yeah. There were two in our packet.
Yeah, one of them was the budget guidance that we'll be sending out to department heads for your review. It includes that in there.
Oh, and it's included within it. Got it.
Yes.
All right, I understand. Again, no, I didn't see anything, we have the 1 day, yep, there's the Saturday with a snow date.
That's always a fun day.
Yeah. I appreciate it. I mean,
It's a fun day.
And I would, if I might, Mr. Chairman, just observe,
take-
that will be 16 days
In the corner.
between when the budget is released and that hearing.
yep.
So there'll be substantial time, I think, for members of this board and the advisory committee to really get through that document and be prepared for the 16th. Hopefully, as questions come up, if they can send them along, that
Yep.
would be helpful. But it will be a little bit over 2 weeks before we get to our first hearing.
And after the countdown, what Chairman Curry alluded to was the budget guidance, the draft budget guidance document that we'll be sending out December 2nd. It's behind the countdown calendar
Yep.
because it goes in with that timeline. As you can see, we'll be sending that out to the department heads, and with that additional countdown behind the guidance document.
It was very clear,
Yep.
which I thought was good, you know, up front. Hey, if this is your first time doing this, please, you're gonna need more time.
Usually they're pretty good.
Additional, yeah.
Luann's always the first one to finish. Wonder if she's gonna do it again. We'll see. I'm not gonna tell you who the last one is.
And I know, let's see, we have, I don't know, what are we calling, we have the first Tuesday of the month during this process. We have, I don't think that they're reflected in this countdown schedule, but it was the chairs and administrators to meet with.
Right, with the school district,
Yep,
that's not
the
on,
jo-
that's not
right,
on this schedule.
But I
We didn't-
wanted to be able to say that that's a companion process to this. So when we said, hey, I don't think we talked enough, I don't think we communicated on, you know, like, the things where we said, you know, if the school had capital items, to make sure that they're aware of the process, so they make sure they get things in front of the right board
We
at the right
can add that
time.
if you'd like. I think it was actually the second Tuesdays at the end,
You're,
wasn't
yeah,
it?
you're right, I just remember that we had
Yeah.
shifted that. I don't necessarily think, because it's not a countdown to town meeting, it's like a school, a school facilitated, but it's joint between the
I certainly think it
towns.
would be helpful if, you know, at the following business meeting, either you or myself, both,
I agree.
whatever's appropriate.
Yeah, we did
Just
that before.
report it out to the board.
Exactly, we did that before. Kind of the same way, Jeff, where you know, when you come back from Montechusett Planning and you give the report, you would do the same thing to say, this is what we're considering, that kind of thing. But I just wanted to add that in there. Otherwise, I don't have any other questions.
Does anyone else? I make a motion to adopt the FY '21 countdown calendar dated November 21st, 2019 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the countdown calendar with the accompanying budget guidance memo?
I guess I just have this one question, is this being sent to the school district?
We certainly can.
We can do that.
I think that they should have it. I think that it would be good for them to see where we are at, so that they would know, if they would like to come to any of the meetings. And it's our countdown to the, you know, do we have any, we usually have another joint meeting with them.
Yeah, they present it at some point.
I'll send that out to the
Yeah,
superintendent
I
and
think
the
that he's-
Chair
that would be
Hughes
wonderful.
of the
If we could do that,
district tomorrow.
to have just that little bit more communication.
I got my note.
Thank you.
I will take care of that first thing, just for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that.
Any further discussion? On the motion to approve the countdown calendar with memo, how do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
Thank you.
Great, and that brings us to FY '21 comparison communities.
Yes, this was in front of you before. I made the corrections I believe Selectman Bennett brought up, and some of the concerns. I think there's just a couple things. It was just minor house cleaning that I had to do. One of them, the row just had to be moved back, but no, it was a good suggestion. I had to rearrange it, but it all worked, so.
I make a motion to adopt the FY '21 comparison communities dated November 21st, 2019 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the comparison communities. Any further discussion? Any questions on it?
This was also sent out to the advisory committee, and they made their feedback as well.
Okay.
Just, I would comment that, while most of them have, are regional school districts, Winchendon is not, and I was just curious, while say, like, maybe Westminster was not considered, seeing how they're in a regional school district, their population is close to ours. I think their budget is a little higher, and their population is close, registered voters is close. And I think I mentioned that before, that was my only thing that I saw on here was we have one without a regional school district when there are other, since we're a regional school district, if we had, I just think it would be better if we had towns. I mean, I'm not gonna say, well, throw this away because of Winchendon on there, but I just think,
Thank you.
if they were all regional school districts.
Yeah, and that's something that we could work on when I do this next time, only because the clock's ticking, we need to get this
But, no,
approved today.
that's what I
But-
say,
but-
I don't want to throw it out just because of that one thing, but, I looked in the directory and.
No, I think
and-
Westminster's a good
and-
suggestion, and that's something I
And it's not
think,
the only town,
Yeah.
it was just the one that was close by, and some of the things were similar, regional school district being the main one.
Their, if I may be allowed to speak, their income per capita is substantially higher. Their home values are substantially higher. Their tax rate comparison is substantially higher. Everything was substantially higher. I believe that the last board looked at that. We can look at it again, but it was all substantially higher.
yeah, that was before me, I believe.
Yes, it was before you, but it was not
Yeah, I
before
mean,
Carter.
essentially, it's, we're having the apple-to-apple discussion.
It was
whereas
not apples, they
Winchendon-
were not apple to
Right.
apple, but,
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't
Winchendon,
mind
maybe
having
we're beyond
Winchendon on
that.
there, just geographically or otherwise, for.
You can look at it again, but it was all substantially higher.
For next year, I could knock off Munson, because that's another one. And, I mean, we can make it work. I mean, I think these are still good communities that we could compare ourselves to, whether, a couple of them aren't regional, but for the vast majority are. That's the,
I
my
had
take
looked
on it.
at it when, I mean, even some of these towns, if,
It is a
when
challenge
you
to
look at,
find.
like, I looked at it from a real estate perspective, if you're gonna purchase in Templeton, you are not gonna purchase in Westminster. You're not. They're not even, if you're gonna
You
go
did
to
that-
school in Ash
Lancaster.
West.
Was it
Lancaster, yeah, it wasn't even close.
because you had me take
That was,
Lancaster off last time. yeah.
it was, their income was higher, their values were higher, everything was higher. That's how I looked at it.
And it's,
People choose Ash West over Templeton every day of the week.
Jeff?
but, I'm looking at the income per capita, is listed as 38,000, and Templeton is at 25.
That's substantially higher.
It's 10 grand, it's not like it's 50,000. The EQV per capita is 133,000 versus our 70, so that one is higher. The average tax bill is 4,900, and Templeton is 36, and I would wait and see what it is in January. But again, that's it's $1,000. It's not like it's $5 more.
That's a lot.
But the
$1,000 is a
EQV
lot
per
of money.
capita it's almost, not quite double, but it's up there. That's the one that stands out, but the rest of them, to me, they're closer. And the big thing is, it's a regional school district.
Well, let us, Mr. Chairman, if I might
But I ain't gonna
suggest,
kill this because of Winchendon.
Yeah.
Yes.
if I might suggest, perhaps you could act on this tonight. Next year, we'll bring you 13, give or take. I will say that, a $10,000 spread is a 40% spread. When you start to look at them percentage-wise.
Yeah.
But let us look at it next year, reach out a little bit further to try to get them all in terms of regional school districts.
But,
Yeah, I can do
the
that.
population is 10 versus 8.
But we would ask
So
you to
you
vote on this
Yep.
tonight.
I'll do that.
2,000 more people, you have the thing.
I'll bring them before when we go into our workshop next year.
We already have a motion in a second. That was part of the discussion.
Yep.
Any other discussion? On the motion to approve the comparison communities for FY '21, how do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to action item I as in India. License renewals, liquor, common victual, auto amusement, live entertainment, class 2 and 3 auto. I know that my pen has substantially less ink in it from signing all those last week.
And Diane, we have quite a few for you to sign before you leave tonight.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
okay. Sorry.
No, you and I were chatting on that other matter, so.
So we have all these. Do you, are we gonna do just one long motion?
What is the,
They're all these?
yeah, I mean, it's got as follows, and you can,
Okay. All right, so I move to approve the license renewals, liquor, common victualler, auto amusement, live entertainment, class 2 and 3 auto, pending all fees, taxes are paid to date, and all required inspections are complete as follows. American Legion, Baldwinville Pizza, Baldwinville Station, Candlelight Inc., Camelot, Otter River Sportsmans, Patriots Package, Reno's Pizzeria Inc., Templeton Spirit, Templewood Golf, Thirsty Turtle, Village Liquor and Mini Mart, The Classic Corner, Fletcher Equipment Company, Insurance Auto Auctions, Scott's Garage, Templeton Auto Parts Inc., and that is it.
Second.
in the chart on the 2020 license renewals basically denotes, your motion covers all of the
Yeah.
businesses, and they each have a different mix. For
Yeah.
instance, the American Legion has liquor, common victualler, live entertainment, and an automatic amusement. The Classic Corner is only class 2, but the sheet does specify within the packet which licenses belong to which business.
I will ask that when the minutes be done, that this list be included in the minutes.
Okay.
Please, and thank you.
Adam, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to also add, I chatted with Holly, and there should be some more license renewals that come in for the December 11th meeting.
December 11th?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so let me also say that the last meeting that we will have for the year, hold on. Hold on. Why does this happen?
Let me help you out.
Yeah, is it? I can't read my calendar in Outlook. I don't understand. December 3rd. Is our last meeting just,
I see the December 11th one.
is that our, yeah, and then it doesn't appear that I have any more in mine.
That would be correct.
That's our last meeting for the year. So if you do not have your licenses approved by December 11th, then you do not have a license for 2020.
Well, that's why I wanted to come up here and just let you know, and that
Okay.
way you let the
So the
public know.
public needs to know.
Correct.
That if you do not come and have a license approved by December 11th, you will not be open for business on January 1st of 2020.
Yeah, you're in violation of law.
Right.
Thank you.
Got a quick question for either you or Carter. So Thirsty Turtle, we had issued some guidance, and I know that we're within an appeal. So their license ends at the end of the year.
It does.
I believe that our motion that we made called for, I think we were gonna close their, license for a week or until such time as they were gonna fix their deficiencies based on the agreement that we had.
Right.
I know that, mid-January, I think
I
is when.
can't remember, 7th or 9th or somewhere in there.
And that is, the ABCC coming back to say, yes, they had grounds, or,
That'll be the ABCC's hearing,
okay.
and you should anticipate 3 months plus or minus before you get the findings of the ABCC.
Okay, so we're including the Thirsty Turtle tonight for liquor, common victualler, live entertainment, and automatic amusement.
And all the conditions of their agreement will be reattached to the license before it is released to them.
Okay, does anyone have any problem, extending their license into calendar 2020 this evening with all this business that we have going on?
No, because if they happen to win their appeal and stuff and they don't
Right,
have a
we
license,
Can't,
I think it's just renew the thing, and then when they get it, the attachments stick.
Yeah,
And in case they lose their hearing, then what we had voted on and put in place gets followed through.
okay,
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking.
right.
That's why
I
didn't say
just
anything.
I want to make sure that Mr. Arsenault understands that that there was cause and effect. You know, we reacted and we had a hearing in this, I would say the Board of Selectmen at the time had a hearing in this room, and we came up with some things, and I want to make sure that Mr. Arsenault knows that these weren't arbitrary. These were actually in the view of some, they were a little bit light on the restrictions that we had placed on him. And I was a little shocked that he came back and wanted to just let us say, never mind, we weren't really serious. We were serious, it was about a life. And it was about trying to reduce risk in his facility. And he wouldn't even meet with the people that we asked him to meet with. So I just want to make sure that we still preserve our resolve as the board. I completely agree with you, Jeff and Diane, but I also want to make sure that we're keeping our eye on the ball with the public safety and making sure that that when the ABCC comes back and we, have our additional day in court, so to speak, afterwards, that we're still concerned about risk mitigation in his facility.
I am.
Yep.
And we met with him numerous times. I mean, he came into the office when
Yeah,
Carter's been
been
handling
present.
Carter's been handling this most of this.
Yep.
But I could tell you, I had a meeting with him, Richard Hanks, and the fire chief. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we've been on doing as much as we can
Yep.
with this pending.
And
this point on the
we're
town
moving
side.
forward, understanding we're trying to help, but at the same time, again, it was identifying that there were deficiencies that contributed to the situation that wound up claiming a life. I understand we keep saying that, but that's the pure fact of it. And we want to work with him, and I understand that he has people. He says he doesn't want to have people falling down when they're walking at a certain incline and things like that. I got that, but help us help you, not you, Mr. The Thirsty Turtle. Mr. May, did you have something to add?
Not regarding the Thirsty Turtle. My only question was off of what Diane said. If they don't come in by December 11th, they won't be able to get their license.
Right.
And I was wondering, who is the enforcing authority on that, and how does that process work? If we have entities that don't come in, or,
It's a great question, and I
It's
can
the police
offer an
department.
example from, right, so we have the police department, and we actually had a violation of a one-day liquor license where they observed, they're aware of when we file, whether it's, a permanent license or otherwise, but it was through their reporting that we were made aware of it. And then we actually settled the item right here in the Board of Selectmen's meeting. So I'm confident in the process. I just, I agree with you. I hope that they understand. You can't wait. You can't delay. And then, open on January 2nd or otherwise and expect that you're not gonna get called to the carpet. We understand who the businesses are. I mean, they're either renewed or not. But that's a good point.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay, we do have a motion in a second. We had some good discussion on that. And we'll include this within the minutes. I know that you said that.
Yes, I would like to have
Yep.
that included, just so that, for public viewing.
Any other discussion on all of the licensing that we have?
Did we have, so we had this previously, we had a lot of these to be voted on at a previous meeting, is that my understanding? Was that one I was not at?
No.
So this is the first time?
Correct. This is
Okay.
the first batch. Yeah,
Okay,
this is the first
so
batch.
And
any,
there'll be more coming.
okay, any batch that has to be included in the minutes, that's what I'm gonna request.
Yep. So if there's additional,
So the final,
right, because we will still have to go through.
talk about the final.
But we've got, for
So if
these,
there's another meeting, okay, so I thought, I misunderstood. I thought there was a different meeting where there was another batch of them. So I guess I
December
would,
11th.
it could be,
December 11th.
so there wasn't a previous meeting?
that is correct.
Okay, so I had missed a meeting, so, but that was just an informational meeting about the budget gap, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
I just don't usually miss meetings.
No, you didn't miss anything.
I'm sorry.
No, you didn't miss
Yes, I
anything.
missed a big meeting, it was
And
budget
we
gap meeting.
signed these already.
You, okay, so I have to sign
We did
that.
some
Okay, I'm
preparatory
sorry.
work.
Yeah, and I
It's
got
okay.
Okay, so you did
I
some
got the
prep work.
folder right over there.
Oh, okay, sorry.
You're
I'm
good.
a little behind. Okay, good.
I got you.
Thank you.
Mr. Terenzini?
Just, so Diane feels comfortable. If it's more than, this establishment with a liquor license, when we have a grid like this, we will either insert the grid into the minutes or attach them as an exhibit.
All right, that would be great.
Good idea.
Any further discussion? On the motion that's been seconded for the license renewals, how do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay, items J and K, we've already taken care of. We are moving into action item 2020 seasonal population increase estimation form. That is for the ABCC. It is in your packet. Third sheet from the back. This is to the ABCC. The estimate is dated, the date of this meeting for Templeton. We are estimating as of July 10th, 2020, we will have an estimated population of 8,160 glorious Templeton residents.
Glorious, that's good. Awesome.
And this estimate is from the town clerk.
Oh, right.
I make a motion to approve the 2020 seasonal population increase estimation form.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Terenzini, the ABC uses this to do they grant numbers of,
They have the ability to grant some additional licenses
based
based
on,
on
okay,
seasonal
that's what I thought it was for.
fluctuations. So, for instance, in my community, we go from around 4,000 this time of year to somewheres in the neighborhood of 25,000.
Oh, wow, okay.
In the summer. Southern Berkshires, Cape,
Yep.
some of those same kinds of explosions. And so it gives them some additional capacity during the summer. We don't fluctuate to any great degree.
Okay,
There are a few snowbirds. They go to
Yep.
Florida in the winter,
that's true.
come back.
Okay, on the motion, and that has been seconded for the approval for the 2020 seasonal population increase estimation form for the ABCC, how do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay, we are up to first right of refusal, or the right of first refusal, sorry, for the 20 Old Mill Lane. I thought I had seen, I think this, is this a go back? Or is this a new property,
This is
Mr.
new.
Terenzini?
I'm afraid I honestly don't remember.
This
Okay,
is- This is new. This is not one I've seen before.
I
usually
don't
try
recall
to-
seeing
We
this
had
one
one, but
before.
not this one.
Not this one. This looks
But
new.
this is a property offered to us, and it's our right of first refusal. We don't have the capital, so we're passing.
We don't have the capital because, with due respect, Mr. Chairman, we haven't had a serious discussion and engaged in the process of how to put the capital in place.
Okay,
A request that I have made, again, with no disrespect,
I understand.
each and every time this matter comes before this board. You will now have lost 15, I believe, of these affordable units. And there will come a time when you've lost them all, and then people will wonder, when did that happen? It's not an easy process, I'm suggesting, but I do think it is one that at some point the community needs to have a conversation about the creation of affordable housing. And in many cases, let's please remember, affordable housing is workforce housing. It's the single person who just got out of college and just got their first teaching job at $32,000, or, perhaps the fellow who's changing the tires and batteries and the oil at Monroe. Many for these folks are just good, hardworking folks that need affordable housing in this community. It's a challenge I respectfully suggest we need to try to address at some point in time.
Is this something that we put on an agenda? Is this something that we put in our new pack, that worksheet that you are gonna explain to me that we have to do coming up? How do we make this a conversation?
I think that Jeff has made recommendations, similar recommendations about creating a fund to be able to start putting money into it, so when we do have,
He's talking about excess tax levy, that fund?
right, but similar, to basically say, well, let's start fencing off some money so we actually can react to these notices, to be able to start purchasing some low-income housing.
Is that what you would say that was for, Jeff?
Actually, the levy capacity was just built-in funding for anything that might come along. More of like an emergency when like the school budget pops or something big pops, and you gotta, instead of having to always cut back the budget and attack it there, you have some other place to turn to, even if you cover part of it. But to Carter's point, the 40B and affordable housing, it's an important issue. It's such a thing that, I was reading an article the other day that Boston is actually, there's discussion about mobile homes and creating places for affordable housing, because the real estate market and the building of like $140 a square foot or so in Boston, they're running out of real estate, and they desperately need affordable housing. But it's the funding to pay for it, say in that location. And just like it is here, it's, maybe smaller and a little bit less, but when you look at our budget and financial situations, the threshold, it's the same. It's just more expensive there than it is here. So, when like the city of Boston is looking at something like that, it's an important thing.
It's an issue.
And it's needed. And again, we have affordable housing units.
And we've talked about it before, but it's not on our work plan. But, so Terry, you asked the question, well, what do we do? We
How do we
basically
do
say,
this?
we are committed to to chapter 40B efforts in public housing, and we establish an account, a fund to basically, like we put money into stabilization. We basically start putting money away, so when we get letters like this, we can actually react to that. I know that Bob wanted to say something about it as well.
Yeah, Carter.
Go ahead.
With respect, you have a fund. It's called the Community Preservation Act. The community simply has not, we took one small stab at it about a year ago. Mr. Henshaw put a small meeting together, but I wasn't able to gain any traction beyond that. But you have a substantial amount of money sitting there. If this is something the board is interested in, perhaps it could start with as simple as a conversation of inviting Mr. Henshaw and a couple members of the CPC into, and I know it's budget time and we're off cycle here a little bit.
I know.
But perhaps, just inviting them in and having a discussion with them, and if the board is interested, tasking them with trying to make something happen along the lines, and it may be too late, given the cycle we're in, to make the annual town meeting, but it might make the fall town meeting. It is not easy, and we need those citizen volunteers that we'll talk about when we get to board and staff member comments in a moment. But I don't think it will happen without some traction
Yep.
behind the idea from this board.
Yes.
So if I remember correctly, this complex was not completed. It was supposed to have 150 units, and I believe there's only 110 or 113. And if we've already said that there are 15 of them gone, there were only so many affordable units. We may already be reaching the end of the affordable housing stock. So this could be one of the last, my suggestion is that this board writes to CHAPA and ask how many affordable units there were in that complex. Because CHAPA was involved in all of them, if I'm not mistaken.
It was when that place, when Day Mill was being built, it was a little contentious, because that was one of the issues. To grant the permit to build that, there would be so many units would be affordable housing.
I do remember that.
And
I lived right in front of it.
it went round and round, and the developers, kind of pushed back, and it went back and forth. But that was a requirement. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head exactly how many units there
I
were.
know, I
But,
can't remember.
but that was a requirement for that place to get their permit and to build. And I can't even guess, because I don't want to say a number, but we gotta, if we
I don't wanna
haven't
say
hit
a
it, if
number
we haven't
either.
hit it,
We're
we're
close.
probably pretty close to
Right.
all of those affordable units
I
being
believe
gone.
you have about 18 units left, but you're about halfway through.
All right, so we can't really, now we've done this for 15 units, so we're not prepared to, are we prepared to say no to this one? Probably not. But I think that a very simple, brief letter to CHAPA to ask how many units are left would be advisable, in my opinion, from this board or the board chair, to just say, we have approved another right of first refusal for 20 Old Mill Lane, and we would like to know how many affordable housing units are left at Day Mill Townhomes, Day Mill Townhouses, Day Mill, it's escaping me at the moment, Day Mill Townhouses. Could you provide us with that information? And I think that CHAPA is part of an organization that would be willing to help us have that conversation.
Right.
Well, they would be part of that conversation as to how we could take them back, like, as they come up.
Mm-hmm.
I think they would be very happy to have that conversation with us.
Okay.
So,
Mr. May, did you have something?
Yeah, I just was going along the same lines as Carter was with the CPC, because, I know that the last time one of these came up, I did a little bit of reading, and I by no means am an expert on any of this, but I read through, and it says, through the CPC, it's mandated 10% go here, 10% go there, and 10% in this fund, and I believe 10% is in one of the housing stock things, whatever. And I believe Mr. Terenzini had said something the last time that we needed to create a trust or something, and that's what I
Right.
couldn't find in the MGL. But I would just say, and I would mimic what I believe Diane's point is here, that, the stock is running away. Basically, I've, sat here at meetings over and over again and watched us pass on, the right of first refusal on these units, one after the other. And I think, you know, we need to stop that, because I think we're gonna run out of housing units, and with the, as we just talked about at the beginning of this meeting, the valuations are going this way. So much so that it stagnated our tax rate potentially for this year, you know, in that light. So, a unit that's at $140,000 in Templeton is a steal.
Yes,
Right.
it is.
And it's a shame to let that go, let's say, out of our control. If, you know, in any form or fashion, if we don't have to.
Is it, I mean, can it be a capital project?
I'm not sure I understand your
Well, I mean, if we're trying to find, you know, work the leverage to secure these back as affordable housing, we wind up having a capital budget to be able to include that in as a capital project.
And that would be a, so in simplest terms, let's say that you had a housing trust, which is required. And they made a request in front of the capital planning for, let me just use a number of $125,000 to come from CPC monies. They would recommend that or not recommend that. Then the town meeting would act upon that.
Okay.
Then the housing trust would have $125,000 available to it. It would then use the monies to buy the unit the next time it became available. All that's actually the easy part. The harder part is getting it spun back out to someone running that lottery where you don't have a good infrastructure in town to do that. So that you get that sale, hopefully you get that done expeditiously. That money comes back in and it goes back into the housing trust as opposed to going back to the
So, yeah,
CPC and
we
then
gotta-
having to be reappropriated.
Oh.
The idea is to try to create a revolving fund.
The letter.
On these particular parcels, they have other things they could do as well. And as I say, really, the hardest part of it is having that administrative mechanism to get the word out, connect people who would be eligible for these kinds of units, for whom the units would be suitable in terms of family size, helping them to get into a mortgage,
Right.
getting those funds back in.
Yep. So I
Of
agree
which
with
we're not-
Diane, we get a
we're
letter,
not-
we
we're
get a
not,
letter,
yeah.
we, let's talk, with Mr. Henshaw, I don't know when we can add him in just for a conversation on how we can
After
proceed.
we get the numbers back.
Okay.
We need to know how many units are in there. I mean, we're not prepared to do this right now
No.
because we don't have a housing trust. We don't know how
No.
many units we have.
Well, yeah,
We're not prepared to market a property.
not even close.
So, I mean, at this point, we can't just leave her up in the air. She has her property on the market.
Right, so we'll vote tonight based on what our current capability is with this, which is nil. And then we have to, like, Carter, and it sounds like everybody is saying we need to move forward with, a plan to make sure that we can
Right.
get this trust in place.
Is it?
I was
No, it's
using the wrong, I
definitely
said
no.
account or fund, I meant, that's what I
Well,
meant.
but yes, I mean, they would, you're right, they would have an account. The trust would have access to an account.
Right.
Yes.
So right now, it's definitely nil, we don't have any.
We can't.
So even within the process, like I was talking about using, you know, capital funds, the process that would even go through would not make it to, and you'd have to go to, it wouldn't be ready to go to town meeting.
So we could write to Mr. Gasser, the program manager, and maybe he could point us in the right direction.
Yeah, I can take that as a
You
do
know,
out.
so,
I got
and
the
you
gist of what
could-
you were looking for.
so we should first make the motion on this, and then I can make a motion to have
I
you
agree.
sign a letter.
And Bob had something else.
Just want to throw one other thing out there. I was just wondering is, when Carter was speaking here, it just dawned on me that, is this something, because I'm sure there's a lot of small communities that are in the same boat as we are, with regards to the affordable housing. And the whole process is what it sounds like is the impediment. So is it anything that you think that maybe we could use a regionalization approach to? Or partner with another community or multiple communities with as a driver of this? either.
Well, you have to do it community by community, because some communities have the CPA money, some communities don't. Could you all use a single entity such as CHAPA or the former RHI when it was in
Yeah.
And
it was in Winchendon? I can't remember its new name now that it's down in Worcester. You could use a common entity, but it would probably you'd probably end up doing it as a one-off.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of people out there doing this right now. In fact, there's pressure from CHAPA and others to try to get the state to maybe move some of those monies to them, because there is a sense that communities are not, that this is one of the charges of the CPA that is not being fulfilled as well as the others.
All right,
So
I like the way we'll move forward
I
with
make a
that.
motion to waive the right of first refusal for 20 Old Mill Lane.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, on the motion, hearing nothing further on the motion, it is made and been seconded for the first right of refusal for 20 Old Mill Lane. How do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
I vote yes as well.
I also would like to make a motion for the board to send a letter to CHAPA to be signed by the chair, asking how many units, affordable housing units, are at day mill townhouses, and any other questions that the chair may feel is appropriate to move us forward with trying to take back some of the affordable housing units as they become available.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none on the motion that has been made and seconded concerning correspondence and request for information from CHAPA, signed by the chair. How do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
I vote yes as well.
Thank you, Mike, for doing
Mhm.
that.
Yes, absolutely.
I appreciate that.
Last item on the agenda for this evening is item N as in November, and that is the discussion on the communication with the advisory committee concerning an ad hoc meeting with, concerning our regional school district. Just by way of background, September 18th, 2009, September 19th, 2019, the advisory committee had a discussion, motion, and a vote about the town having a need for an ad hoc committee in regards to the town's financial constraints with the current education yearly budgetary increases. When a town only has the ability to increase revenue based on a 2.5% and consistently the school budget is being increased by 9%. In the past and present, this has caused the town to make cuts in order to fund the total amount requested by the school, above the minimum contribution. In the long term for the town, we as the advisory committee feel that an ad hoc committee should be created to look at a comparison of municipal school finance versus continuing in the regional, current regional school finance or district finance. Giving the town the ability to gather needed information to see what the best education solution would be to lessen these these education budgetary increases. The regional school district investigation and comparison. As a committee, look at the current Massachusetts laws, do a cost comparison of other regional school districts. Committee should look at the current regional school district agreement, projection of 5 to 10 years growth and cost to the town if we continue with the current regional district, and research into what state laws could be changed to give the town a break on increasing educational costs. That was from the advisory committee chair, Tony DeJoy. So last week, during the informational meeting, I had talked about some discussion through that. I think it was a little bit forward and even mentioning a date. And Jeff had brought it up in some singular correspondence that we have not had the chance to even discuss this communication that was made, call it 2 months ago. So, what is the board's thoughts on creating an ad hoc committee to discuss? Was that a Babe Ruth calling the shot?
That was a,
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see.
So really, if you've got this in your packet, the bullets there, that middle set of bullets is really what the takeaways would be, or that's the goals. We have Mr. May with us this evening, if there's any kind of clarification or otherwise, or any questions to assist in our discussion.
no, that was a, I'm raising my hand.
Oh, you are raising your hand,
I
please.
was raising my hand.
Go ahead.
So I disagree with an ad hoc committee at this time. I think that we've been having, I think that we should continue with our joint board meetings from selectmen, select board to select board, between us and Phillipston. We talked about opening up the district agreement already with them.
We did.
And I think that it should come from select board to select board, and then getting together with the school committee. I think that Dr. Cassavant has talked about sincerely. You've been meeting with the TA and the superintendent and the chairman and the chairman of the school committee and the vice chair. And I think that those meetings have been going well. The superintendent talked about knowing that they can't do things the same way all the time, expecting a different result. I think that that was sincere. I think that we should wait and see how this next year plays out. I think that they learned some valuable lessons this year, and how not to do things next year, based on conversations I either overheard while, talking with other school committee members and Dr. Cassavant, and other parents. I think that, Mr. Hatch came and spoke, and our town isn't going to get looked at for any more funds because we, as he stated, we not have English learning language, as the monies that we receive from the state are pretty much level, not more. And that's just the way that our town is set up. As far as any current laws to make sure the town is utilizing all of its avenues in regards to town allowed roles within the process of being a district member, I don't think I understood what that meant. Do a cost comparison of other regional districts similar in enrollment size, okay. The committee should take a look at the current regional agreement. I believe that that should go from board to committee. I still believe that research into what state laws, Jeff has talked about that, I have talked about that, we've sent letters to our legislators. I think that we should still do more letters to our legislators. We already did them, we asked the school committee to do them. I think that there needs to be parent groups that need to be more involved. I think that, I just don't agree with having an ad hoc committee at this time, maybe next year. Oh, I just heard all that squeaking in
Oh,
my
I'm sorry.
ear. I just think
I
maybe
was
next.
trying to get you to stop.
You were?
No.
Oh,
That was perfect.
Yeah, right?
I can stop anytime.
I didn't mean that, but
Just you.
I didn't know what I was
I
doing.
just don't think that now is an appropriate time to do it. That's my opinion on that matter.
Okay.
I respectfully disagree.
Okay.
I think that the conversation needs to take place. The more that we as a town pool our collective knowledge and do the research, we'll have more to bring to the table with the other boards. If the advisory committee wants to help do this, there's some brilliant minds on that committee that have the time to look into these laws and things. And when we do go to look at sit with Phillipston again, or we might even have more things to bring to the table. I think with the school committee. I also think that the cost of running Phillipston is an issue for, our town assessment. Phillipston, as much as I love the kids in Phillipston, I have some of them in my swimming lessons, and the parents are wonderful. That building doesn't have any handicap, it needs a new roof. We're paying that. Our town is paying that.
Their town pays that.
No, not all of it, from what I understand, and this is why I think it's very advisable to meet, again, with the advisory committee. It's very, I would recommend meeting with the advisory committee, because they may have some things that we just don't know right now. I don't have all the answers. Do you? Do you know how much it costs our budget to run Phillipston? I think 84%, something like that, we pay for 84% of into Phillipston to keep that school open. He's got a
Okay.
mic.
I know,
Sorry.
I know.
Board first.
I was gonna call on him, sorry.
Okay.
I'm in favor of that. I know in a way, maybe it seems like, well, you know, have another committee. But we talk about working with them. And just as a side issue, the chair of the school committee is also on the Phillipston Finance Committee. So their finance committee is already in the loop as far as attendance-wise at any meeting that the school committee has. I mean, they don't even have to send a rep, the Phillipston Finance Committee doesn't even have to send a rep to go to that meeting, because they have one built in.
Well, what, I know you're speaking, I want to ask a question.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean not to include the advisory committee. That's not what I meant at all.
No, who are we talking about that would be on the advisory, on this ad hoc committee?
Well, from my understanding, an ad hoc committee would be like a couple members of the Board of Selectmen and a couple members, like, we haven't really had that discussion to say how many of each.
I thought they mentioned
I would
two
say
and
an ad
two.
hoc committee would be, you know, a couple and couple, but again, that's a conversation that hasn't
Between
happened.
two boards, or would we add other people? I mean, Terry was just talking about other people in the community. She's been, Mr. Francis has been involved with a lot of the discussions about trying to find additional sources of revenue. Because, I mean, the bullets, both the regional school district and the municipal school district investigation do range through these topics. So, I mean, as you talk through that, that's a good question. Who would we consider for this ad hoc committee?
Right.
Or
Any
creation?
at-large, you're saying like at-large?
Yeah, that's probably a good way to say it.
Boards and at-large, so it would be advisory committee, board of selectmen, and then at-large seat, a couple at-large
Right.
seats.
And what about school committee in Phillipston?
Well, I would
I don't
say
know.
we need to talk amongst ourselves first, and then.
It's a regional agreement.
But this is to give us knowledge, so that when we do go talk about the regional agreement, we are empowered and we have knowledge, we know what we're talking about. We have the facts and figures in front of us. How much does it cost Templeton? How much does Templeton, do you know how much the school committee, how much we contribute to keep Phillipston open out of our budget?
And that would include the school committee. Wouldn't it be best to have them there so they could tell us?
Yeah, some of
Not
these
at
items
first.
here.
Why would we, like, do all this, spin our wheels and do the research when they would already be there to answer the questions? That's why I don't agree with an ad hoc committee. Because you're gonna spin your wheels.
Bob's got his hand up. They know what,
Mike
Are you
knows
good?
that.
Are you good?
Oh, good.
Okay.
I don't want the numbers.
okay.
You don't want the
I don't
numbers?
want the numbers, no, that's what I wanna look at. That's the idea of the ad hoc committee, is to look at the school, raw numbers, what it costs us as a regional school system, and to look what it would cost Templeton, not Templeton and Phillipston, Templeton to teach its students in a municipal school district. So it's looking at regional versus municipal. It has nothing to do with the school committee, it has to do with the town.
What's best for our budget?
What's best for us, not what's best for Narragansett Regional School District. That's a separate entity.
Unfortunately,
Templeton.
Bob, the state is not they're not looking to de-regionalize anybody anymore. They're looking for
Well,
more
that doesn't really
regionalization.
matter either, does it? I don't know if it does, but if the town says we are,
Well,
how can the
could,
state say we can't?
So you don't want any numbers from the school at all? You just want to
If
look
I
at
do, we'll ask for
simplifying.
the numbers. I don't want them to supply the numbers. I want numbers that we need, or as the ad hoc committee needs, to figure this out. Not the numbers that they want to give us, as I will be witness to, aren't that good. Because the numbers that we got from the budget, if you look at, they aren't impressive. So I would want the ad hoc committee to have virtually the same access as the advisory committee is supposed to town finances. Open access to the school, because you guys have the authority to allow that, as the Board of Selectmen, because you oversee that aspect of the finances. It's in the MGLs, I did read that.
Okay.
But, it's basically so that we, as Templeton, not as the regional school district, but we as Templeton, can decide if our tax dollars are better spent as a municipal school district with just Templeton, or Templeton and Phillipston, or Templeton, maybe Phillipston and some other
I was
district.
just gonna say that myself.
Maybe expanding it, maybe the idea of just having Phillipston is, let's say, overly expensive for Templeton. Because that's what I think. I personally think that we spend money to keep Phillipston open. And we don't have the money to do that, I don't believe. And that's part of the reason why I'm fully in favor of anything that looks at a way to save money for the taxpayer. I don't care how it comes about, who brings it up, anything, I just want it done. Because if we put it off till next year, that just puts it off another year. It doesn't do anything.
Nothing
And I understand that, there's this whole, we don't wanna do this, we don't wanna do that. That old argument of, you don't wanna stir the feathers over there, ruffle the feathers kind of thing. We gotta work together. It's just numbers, it's just raw numbers that don't work. And, we can't just keep guessing. Or can't just keep saying we should do better. Better than what? We don't know what we're trying to do better than, or what numbers we're trying to get to, or what would be efficient school financing.
And how do you figure that out if you don't talk about it? Especially
don't
like you
ask the
said too,
school.
we did mention that, what was that, excuse me, Mr. Terenzini, what was that, group for schools? Mars, is that Mars, is that something that, we haven't even gotten that far, have we done anything with that?
We haven't found them terribly helpful to date, let me put it that way.
If I could,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think we're gonna solve this evening, because I don't think we were really prepared to deal with, other than discuss, having an ad hoc committee. But I remember there was an email that Carter sent out about, you had talked, the chair had said, put this on the December 4th workshop, where I think we could invite the advisory committee there, and then, because I'm looking at an email, but trying to hash things out with even just one member of the advisory committee, I would like to hear the collective intent. Because in one sense, I think this ad hoc committee would do what Phillipston did by residents taking things to town meeting when they had, because that's how we really ended up going to the fire station and talking to the Board of Selectmen and starting, we're gonna look at this and this, because they had those town meeting articles looking at what Bob just mentioned. Dissolve the district and go their own way, or go to another district. They brought in a person from Mars to speak, and she did say that, the state is not, they're not gonna be thrilled or really behind
No,
you
they wanna
to do,
increase
because they want,
districtship.
they want fewer police dispatch centers, they want more, I mean, you know, they want more regionals. They want fewer separate dispatch things, they want more
That's what she
regional
said.
screws, you know, which I don't know why anybody would go to a regional school district right now with the funding thing. But
Right.
that aside, the state, you know, is.
Not with the
wants to
geographic
shoehorn
area
you-
that we
right,
have, right.
Wants to shoehorn you into regionalization. So I think an ad hoc committee has merit, but I don't think this board right now, lacking the advisory committee members here to ask them, you know, what your real intent of this, because I can read the email, but I would rather have a little more discussion.
Yep.
And
So would
my thought would be if, put this on the workshop and invite them and then see where we go there. Maybe, you know, we can have a discussion with them and say, hey, look, this is what the approach we think we'd like to do is go with the selectmen and this. What do you think on that? Not trying to tell you, now go sit in the corner, because we don't want to,
Yeah.
don't want you
Well,
involved.
I'd
but
like to move the ball
I think
forward.
we could have a better discussion with them in front of us, and
Okay.
it would give us a little more, because like you said, I went a little off the rails on conversation with you, but I think I explained to you my whole
Yeah.
thought process behind
agree.
that. What I was just trying to avoid doing, when the chairman advised, Tony sent me an email and said, you know, we really can't send two people because we haven't discussed as a board. It was just you know, because it's easy to
Because
get.
we did.
It's
We
easy to
did
go.
start to go into that.
It's easy to end up in the trash can. I mean, you start talking and you just don't realize what you just did, and I think Tony realized that. As soon as he saw, you know, the rules of open meeting, he went, yeah, that's right, we haven't even discussed this yet, so he even said he doesn't think we could have an ad hoc committee together for the December 4th meeting, because they're not gonna meet between now and then to say, well, we'll send, you know, we think two people from the advisory committee. So I think we would be better off to have this discussion on the 4th workshop and try to get the advisory committee there and I hear from them face to face and really hash Diane's point, and I guess I would say mine and Terry's, but I would be more comfortable if they're here so I can act, because I can't ask it's like watching a meeting. I don't get to ask a question
Right.
or nothing. I can hear what you said, but you know, and I can't ask a question from an email, so that's just my thought on it. If,
Okay.
before we like say no or yes,
So
I would like to
we
have.
can,
Do we make,
yes.
I would just like to say that I concur with that, because I came here fully to be a citizen tonight. I had no anticipation speaking, so I was ill-prepared for any questions. But I would bend to that thought.
Okay. So,
do we make a motion?
I don't know if we.
I don't think it needs.
I don't think we need to,
I-
however, we can put this on the agenda for the workshop. Moving forward, I think that we've had discussion on, at least the way it's framed within the email, to say this is the possible scope, so we can actually talk through this. But, like you said, Jeff, if we're gonna go into the December 4th meeting with an invitation, workshop, with an invitation to the advisory committee, I think we also need to think in terms of purpose, scope, makeup, and duration.
Okay.
Why are we getting together? What is the scope? Where's that hard stop? I think that between Bob and Diane, that was a good back and forth to say, I don't want their numbers. So like that would be the scope to say, here's the existing data that we're using. But that's what I think a discussion on December 4th should then come up with a recommendation that we would then, well, it's a workshop, we could put it on there to vote. But at least we'd be able to make a recommendation for all those areas on a ad hoc. Yes, Mr. Terenzini?
I was gonna suggest, yes, this was put down as a referral, so you could have that joint discussion, because I'd like to invite them to listen to the audit that we're getting from Mr. Roselli. His placement on the agenda may have to float, because he's kind of, double teaming two towns that night, so he's
Yep.
got one at, I think it's 6, and then as soon as he's
Yeah,
finished
we're
there, he'll
usually
come
pretty
over.
good about that.
And also, Adam, you will find in your packet tomorrow a memo from Adam on the factor that we would use for our expense projections on educational, because we told you
Okay.
that the practice we're following is not what's in financial management policy, which, after our discussion with Mr. Hatch, may in fact not be appropriate at all. I would also say that trying to start a ad hoc committee this time of year as you go into the budget
Yeah.
season.
I agree, it's a lot.
I think that Diane, with respect, has a lot of good points from a political standpoint. And also, we're trying to get in the budget. There's a lot of questions there that the advisory committee could solicit information on without needing a whole new committee. I'm not sure they understand that if you leave a district, we have to buy the capital out. We have to buy Phillipston out of the value of all those buildings. You will no longer get transportation aid. I'm not sure people understand that it's not an 85-15 split, because they have to meet their minimum local contribution, which on a per capita basis is actually higher than our minimum local contribution. So I do think there's a lot of basic groundwork that could be done to have that information at hand before you actually go to a full-blown
Yep.
committee, which
We'll
would
have a
take
discussion on
time
the 4th.
from that committee and this body, should it put members on it, during the time of year in which we really need to be kind of budget-focused.
Understood.
And I would like to have them here, because I would make the point to them that you're the advisory committee. You could do all of this on your own. And actually, it would be, I would say, you could say it's one of their duties to do. It involves one of the largest bills, or the largest bill the town gets. That's the school assessment. And involving that is the regional school agreement, which they could look at and just,
Yep.
dissect it that way. And maybe they were trying to be inclusive, like, well, we're trying to work together, so they would suggest an ad hoc committee. But they could actually be doing this research as far as numbers, money, the regional agreement, all of that stuff. They could be gathering
Yeah,
that
I
on their own while we're doing our select thing with, as we said, with the Phillipston Board of Selectmen, that we would come back and do. So I really wouldn't want to just say, tell them, well, we're gonna go this direction, and forget about everything we talked to and kind of agreed about at that meeting, which,
I
isn't.
think we can get to that point. If we have the discussion on the 4th, we can bring up those issues and say, what is the benefit of doing that? Or there is no benefit, but purpose, scope, makeup, duration, it's gonna yield a product. And that's probably the only thing I forgot there. It's like, well, what is the so what? What is the report? What is the findings to say, this is the answer to that question or otherwise? But I think we can talk through that.
Because again, I have my personal thought that the ad hoc committee is not really that bad of an idea and everything, but then I gotta put that selectman hat on and think realistically, what would be the more effective way, and that is probably us and the school committee and the other select board, the ones who are actually gonna put the
Jeff, we
warrant
may get to
together.
that. We may get to
and-
that.
And we
Yeah.
have, the budget things.
That may be the conclusion.
I mean, it's, and I get Diane's points and stuff, and from, putting your selectman hat on, that's, how to think.
Time is finite.
I just think that we would be better with both entities here, and maybe, kick that around, and we leave the meeting with, okay, we understand the roles that we're gonna take,
Yeah.
and you're going down to the left and we're going to the right, but eventually, soon, we're gonna be in the middle to talk about, because that does involve the benefit of the town of Templeton.
Terry, did you-
That's my
Well, out of
final.
respect for this letter, we should invite him to the workshop, have a meeting of the minds, and like you said, what is gonna be the end product?
Well, and they should be there anyway, like Carter said, for the audit. I mean, out of,
All right.
I mean, it may
Where
take a
did-
totally new
Where does this
direction.
invitation come from? You want it to come from me?
Sure.
You know, going back to, okay, all right. Anything else?
and I would just ask that the consensus of the board for the chair to communicate such to, the chair of.
Say that again?
About the,
Should it come from him?
to invite
Oh,
them
yeah,
as
I just
far
wrote-
as, okay.
Yep, I just wrote that
Okay.
down.
Thank you again.
It's consensus on my end.
All right, that brings us to the end of new business. We are up to board and staff member comments and/or reports.
And I do have one.
You may start.
And it's gonna take, quick.
Okay.
Because I'm under, you know, but I'm gonna sit here and you'll understand why in just a minute.
All right.
That
That's a
doesn't
lot.
look quick,
I
Seth.
know, right?
Did you say that was gonna be quick?
I was just gonna
What?
say, maybe I'm gonna.
What'd you say?
Did you just say this was gonna be quick?
Yes.
You did
For me,
not.
it's gonna be quick.
Oh, all right.
You said 3 days.
I have a couple things. I've been thinking about this, I just, I gotta stay on point. All right. From the last town meeting, the special town meeting that we just had, which involved the bylaw, amending a bylaw concerning the budget, the preparation,
Yes.
the creation of it, and answering questions on this. And philosophically, myself and the town administrator, Carter, we had a little different, I wanted the wording in there just to try to put it to end. His was the opinion that it had already been, by way of the bylaw that was done back in 2014. So that's settled now. That's in writing, on paper, on the record. There should be no more, spend a lot of time about that. So the other thing that I've been seeing is this, a lot of discussion and talk about the old, been doing it for 250 years, line item budget. The last time there was a line item budget was in 2016. There was a motion at town meeting to do the budget line by line. That motion was defeated. Town meeting didn't want to do that. The attitude perhaps has changed, but, so again, that to me, and that's like the second time in, probably maybe 5-year period or so, where that motion had been made and town meeting voted it no. Now, the other thing I hear, detail, we have the detail. So, this is 9 pages long, and this is what used to go in front of town meeting. This is just the budget, it's a spreadsheet. And yes, there are some things in here, like under Selectmen, you can see the town administrator salary, the Selectmen office salaries, the office expenses. And when you do this, when you do town meeting warrant, not the motion, but the things that are included in the motion are this. And back in 2011 for the 12 budget, it's 139 items as a result of doing this. I've heard detail, hear the detail. Under Selectmen, it says Selectmen's office expenses, $11,000. That's a lot of money. What does it get spent on? It doesn't say here. I have the unique experience, have been on a Selectman for 3 years, advisory for 3.5 years. I'm back on the select board now. I have worked with this budget and this one. This is what I got as a Selectman. It's 131 pages. It has the same information broke down page by page. The administrator's salary is a page, the expenses are a page. There's no more detail in here than there is in here. I don't know what that $11,000 goes for, because it doesn't say here and it doesn't say here. None of the budgets I got in 3 years said that. So now we went to this.
When you say
And,
this,
and
do you
this is
mean
a product
omnibus?
of Mr. Terenzini.
The omnibus.
When you go to the omnibus, this 139 things that town meeting had to look at and wonder about gets pared down to 20. It's been that way for 18, 19, and 20. When I look in this book, fiscal 20, there are 466 pages in here. There is information in here that I had never saw in 3 years in a budget presentation as a selectman. And you talk about detail. When I go to the select board, expenses, I have listings. Office supplies, $2,500.
By
I have
account.
employee physicals. I have dues for the Massachusetts Municipal Association, mileage, annual car allowance, reusables. It's all listed here. The detail that I keep hearing about, low-level detail, detail, that's not here.
Agreed.
It's here. This budget that we have, and as a matter of fact, this one is 466 pages. Fiscal 18 was 364. Fiscal 19 was about 400. There's debt in here, there's capital planning in here. This book, not in there. The school district explanation is not even in here. There's a number, but I don't hear any breakdown of it. It is in here. So for people to, when they hear, oh, this is so much better, and we get a lot more say-so, in some things you do. Instead of seeing a total number, you see a few line breakdown. But apparently town meeting doesn't want to take the time, they don't want to go through this. So, as somebody who dealt with this, and now this, as a selectman, as advisory committee member, and now as a selectman, I like this.
I agree.
I think it's gonna get better. A little more information is gonna get put into this. The capital plan is in here, the explanation of debt, revenue, how we get to the amount of money that we have to spend, so when town meeting votes to spend it. And that's really, you come down to it in simplest terms, town meeting sets the tax rate, because they decide how much money is gonna spend. So, as someone who has the unique experience of selectmen advisory, this one and this one, I prefer this one. It's better for the townspeople. You don't have to carry this around. You can go online, print out whatever you want. You can come and see it and ask questions about it and know all of the detail. Whatever you want to take to town meeting, this is it. So I personally would like to thank Adam for all his work. No, actually, it's, as much as I disagree on some things with Carter, and philosophical and otherwise, I really do want to thank him for this. It's been stated by some of the department heads at the meeting that they appreciated this and coming to one meeting, giving their presentation to both boards, or, advisory committee and the select board at one time. This is a big improvement, and there is more information in here than we ever got in this thing over here. Maybe this is how it was done for 250 years. Well, we have evolved and we get more information. It's in one package, it's concise. Are there a couple of issues? Yes. 1 year, the paper copy changes we got.
Right.
For some
I do
reason,
recall,
the
yep.
web didn't get updated. My, and this is a personal thing, is when we switched from here to here, town meeting was not directly asked if they wanted to make the switch. There is an opinion by the DOR from 1992 that says only town meeting can change a format, a budget format, to a different format. That is my only complaint. I have not heard maybe one or two individuals speak to that and really question it and complain about it. So, you know, I have a little, that's a personal conflict within myself, that I may or may not try to do something. And I wanted this said to the public at a meeting. Some of the things I heard from the last special town meeting with another change of not reading the entire motion, even though, if you look in the voter's guide, the motion was right there in front of you. The same as if we would have read it on the stage, which technically is not even the job of the selectmen, because people might be surprised, and they can check town meeting times. Selectmen really don't have a job, an obligation at town meeting. Tradition-wise, they do. People go there, where the hell's the selectman at? They don't have to be there. We don't have to read the motions. The moderator could do that. You need a moderator, you have to have a town clerk, you have to have checkers, and you have to have people show up. And that's your town meeting. Selectmen have really no job, no responsibility to be there, other than, you know, I'd be in the audience.
Theater,
As
yeah.
thing. But as a board sitting up on the stage making the motions, it's really not required. If we didn't show up, the town meeting's gonna happen, you know.
Does anybody?
So this is, like I said, I wanted to speak to this and say what I thought, because I have dealt with both of them. Some selectmen advisory committee members, this is all they've dealt with. They dealt with this. And I think it's important that the people realize how good this is. And it's a big improvement. And having said that, an endorsement of to Carter Terenzini about this is no way, you know, to be taken as a rubber stamp of approval of everything he does from my perspective. But on this one,
I would never take it for that.
on this one, I highly endorse it, and I appreciate it. And by the way, I got a bunch of Post-it notes in here about some things, because I like to ensure that Carter's stays busy.
Can I just say something, Jeff?
Yes.
That's very, those are some very kind words that you have. And I've dealt with that sheet that you have right there, and I had a really hard time moving to that big, ginormous book. I was like, you're gonna make me read every one of those pages? Seriously? Carter Terenzini? But I appreciated it because it was more detailed. It was much more detailed. So I appreciate those words, Jeff.
And again, I had one last thing, and very quickly. I have been told this face-to-face, and I have read it, seen it on Facebook, something to the effect of, no little kids watching, right? I'm tired of it. I don't want to hear this bullshit that it's not our fault that we didn't read everything before we voted on it. Selectmen, do your job. We want to hold you accountable. Well, I'm going to hold the voters accountable. Show up for town meeting. You don't have anybody read you the ballot when you go in to vote. If there's an override question, a debt exclusion, if it's a state election, and there are ballot questions for the state, you don't have anybody holding your hand, turning the pages, explaining stuff to you when you go into the ballot, into the voting booth. You can carry information with you to help you remember, what is this about, what is that about? You can't leave it, you have to take it with you. But that's as close to help as you get. So if you can go into the ballot and vote in the voting booth with nobody holding your hand, I expect you can do the same at town meeting. It's your responsibility, and I would say we should hold you accountable. It's a democratic process. You're a voter, you're a resident, you're a taxpayer, all three, one, two of those. When you go to town meeting and you're gonna vote on something, when you're gonna vote on $9 million, you should personally know what that's about. And if you don't understand it, don't agree with it, or Somebody didn't read the motion for you. All you have to do is go down to the front. Mr. Moderator, I don't understand what you're asking of us. I don't understand what you have in front of us. Can you explain to me what action you are asking us to do? And you will get that explanation. It's not the Board of Selectmen's job to walk you through this process and hold your hand and turn the pages for you. As a resident, as a citizen, as a voter, you have a responsibility to know what you're voting on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my comment for the evening.
Okay.
And I think that was kind of fast for me, but,
Along
so,
Jeff's,
thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the time
Absolutely,
and for
thank you.
listening to me.
along the lines of Jeff, if we had, is it possible to set a quorum so that when,
I will answer your question real quick. There was, I forget the community, it might have been Ashburnham. Anyway, it was a local,
Mentioned it.
community that had a quorum, and I think it was 50.
showed up?
They came to town meeting 3, maybe 4 nights. 49 people, 47 people. They're making phone calls. Hey, we need people to come, because once you set a quorum, if that number of people aren't there, the town meeting doesn't go. Look into the cost of holding a town meeting. You have February, March, April, and May to have a town meeting, but you must have it by June 30th. If you have a quorum, some people say, well, let's have it 300, let's have it 50. If those people don't come, what are you going to do? One approach is town meeting can vote to waive that for that particular thing, but why have that and create those headaches for yourself?
Well, we have it on our goals to basically work on this,
Yeah.
so.
Well, I
mean,
understand, it's just that
Yeah.
he's saying, people get involved,
Yes,
do
see,
your
the
research.
community of Ware has a quorum requirement of 100, 84 showed up.
Yeah,
Can't have a town meeting.
If you have, if I may, Mr. Chairman, if you set a quorum, I can guarantee you that at least 1 out of every 3 meetings, you will be sitting there for 45 minutes to an hour trying to get people to show up. I can guarantee it.
I've seen that, and I just,
And you have business that you have to run.
Mm.
This is the form of government, but you also need decisions and budgets adopted in a timely manner.
I understand the concept, you don't want 20 people, which happened in Templeton once. There was a town meeting, I think there was 20, maybe 25 people. They passed everything. They just looked around and said, "Puh, we're the only ones here," and they passed everything.
imagine that.
Because, so, a quorum and a conceptual idea is good, but in reality,
It doesn't work,
it doesn't work so good. It's,
We as a
nothing
community
gets
vote.
done.
so, anyways,
We
that's,
should- Yeah,
that's my
thank you,
comments
Jeff.
for this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Further, board comments? Jeff,
I
kick us
just,
off.
I just want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving,
That's a good one.
and that you're all blessed richly with your family and friends.
And safe,
Thank you, Diane.
safe holiday. Motion to adjourn?
Well,
Oh,
I've got
sorry.
staff.
Mr. Chairman, I hate to do this to you, but we have reason to request an executive session for collective bargaining with the dispatch union, with the anticipation that the board would convene an open public session to take a formal vote.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Happy Thanksgiving to you both.
Let's see. I'll entertain a motion to enter into executive session per Mass General Law, Chapter 30, subsection 21A2, strategy, negotiations, and collective bargaining.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? On the motion to enter into executive session with possible action under Chapter 30, subsection 21A2, to reconvene afterwards for a vote. How do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
I vote yes as well.